Lake Superior fish are a nutritious food source and are an important part of a balanced diet. But these freshwater fish can sometimes contain harmful chemicals referred to as chemicals of mutual concern.
Chemicals of mutual concern originate from human sources, and that Canada and the US agree are potentially harmful to human health and the environment. Chemicals of mutual concern are known to enter Lake Superior through atmospheric deposition, point sources, non-point sources, and are released from existing contaminated bottom sediments within the lake. Current chemical contaminants causing consumption advisories in Thunder Bay's waterfront include mercury, PCBs, dioxin-like PCBs, and toxaphene. PFAS, a family of man-made chemicals, are considered low in Thunder Bay's inner and outer harbor.
We tend to see CMCs at its greatest concentration at the top of the food chain. Fish that we love to eat, like walleye, salmon, rainbow trout. And so when it comes to eating fish, it's important that we try not to eat the really big fish. Big walleye that you're going to catch and want to eat because it's going to provide a huge meal. That walleye is the end product of so many other fishes that have lived within the aquatic environment. And so at that point, that walleye is going to have a lot of mercury. And it's not mercury in its inorganic form that we're concerned about, it's methyl mercury. So the organic form of mercury that gets produced by bacteria within the environment, they convert that natural, sort of occurring everywhere mercury into that methyl mercury.
Methyl mercury is definitely transported up food chains, and it magnifies from one organism to another. So it's lowest in, say, algae, but is higher in zooplankton and even higher in fish. The elimination rates of that contaminant are very, very slow. It takes a long time for an organism to purge that methyl mercury from their bodies. Also, methyl mercury tends to accumulate in the musculature of fish, so the muscle tissues, the part that we're typically eating. Organic compounds like PCBs and all the organic contaminants like fire retardants, those tend to accumulate in the fat tissues of fish, so in the skin, fatty deposits. The route of accumulation really depends on the nature of the contaminant.
Through the MNRF monitoring program, they monitor lakes on a 5-year cycle to understand how much mercury are in the fish in respective lakes. And different factors of those lakes will influence the levels of mercury within the aquatic system. To take a sample, essentially what we do is we measure fish length. The longer the fish is, the higher the levels of mercury tend to be. And so we measure the fish, we weigh the fish, we identify them, and then from there we take a biopsy of the fish fillet from just behind the dorsal fin to analyze in a lab the levels of contaminants or metals within the fish flesh.
They've been sampling fish for contaminants since the early 1970s. From concentrations of contaminants that they find in those fish tissues, they take those along with some assumptions about the quantities of fish that people typically eat and turn that into a guideline for number of meals per month that you can safely eat without having to worry about being overly exposed to contaminants.
The Guide to Eating Ontario Fish provides an online map where you can look up consumption advisories at your anticipated fishing destination. You may search by the water body name, location, or species name. Click the orange fish icon to open the link and the consumption advisory table. Consumption advisories are issued according to their location, species, and length. Superscripts beside each species name identify the contaminant or group of contaminants which are causing the consumption restrictions.
So I think the guide is a really great resource for anglers, subsistence fishers, to help manage risk when it comes to eating fish. Especially in Northern Ontario, we have a huge angler base. A lot of people love to go fishing and consume the fish from the environment that we love to interact with. You know, they provide a lot of really great nutrients for us, and it's a fun way to get your dinner, right? But I think it's also important that we balance that positive side of eating fish with the negative effects that we may see as well.
If you want to prepare your fish, especially if you're catching them off the Great Lakes where you want to reduce your exposure to organic contaminants, a good trick is to try and remove the fatty tissues where those organic contaminants are going to accumulate. So that's remove the skin, the more fatty areas like around the belly of the fish, make sure that all the visceral fat is gone from the fish. And then when you grill it, make sure that you're grilling it such that any additional fat can drip away from the fillet, and that will definitely reduce your exposure to organic contaminants.
Current Canadian actions at the federal level to reduce the amount of CMCs in the environment focus on regulations that prohibit the manufacture, use, sale, offer for sale, or import of these substances and products that contain them with a limited number of exemptions.
There's been a number of other remediation projects, policy changes and implementations to reduce the loading of these CMCs into our environment, into our harbor. A big part of that is just proper disposal of hazardous materials, using environmentally friendly cleaning products. If you have a waterfront property, try to encourage to have a buffer zone, a lot of riparian vegetation at that waterfront site so that it can help filter out some of the contaminants before it enters that aquatic environment. If you're a member of the public and you're concerned about CMCs in the Thunder Bay Harbor, you can join our public advisory committee that the RAP holds to discuss environmental issues such as fish consumption within our harbor.